Will the Cardinals be making a reunion with an old friend, or will they sign the guy that they've been linked to by national media? And lastly, some insights from the DeWitts from winter warmup, including knowing that we will be having some renovations to Busch Stadium. Thank you for tuning into the St. Louis Cardinals Daily podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher, and let's start with that reunion that got brought up while Chaim Bloom was being interviewed at the Cardinals winter warmup. Again, the Cardinals winter warmup is a wonderful thing to go to if you're in the St. Louis area or a Cardinals fan and you want to visit. I mean, Busch Stadium is Cardinals heaven, but this is like the secondary heaven. I guess it's like purgatory on your way to Cardinal heaven. It's an excellent event every year. Proceeds go to charity, and you get to meet and greet with players. You get to see lots of various vendors and stuff. So even if you're not a St. Louis Cardinals fan, you get to see lots of stuff from other teams there, even with the vendors. Not sponsored, but a great plug. I highly encourage it. Great for family, too. But with the stuff at winter warmup, where it's at Ballpark Village and Busch Stadium, always comes some media moments where ownership, players, coaches all get interviewed and get to be asked some questions, sometimes by the fans and sometimes by the media. And it always is a nice little update right before the spring training gets going, which is in about a month. And it lets players get some insight, or fans get some insights to what players, coaches, and the ownership are thinking. And I'm going to try to cover a lot of that stuff in this episode. The first thing that I want to bring up is that the Cardinals are still looking to go out and add some players. A little bit shocking to me that we won't just... It's shocking in some ways that we're not letting more run for some young guys potentially, but I guess it would make sense with adding some depth in case the young guys get hurt, because we don't have a ton of depth right now, specifically in the outfield, which is what got brought up to Chaim Bloom. Chaim Bloom mentioned, quote, that there is room for a right-handed hitter for the Cardinals, and a fan specifically mentioned that Harrison Bader's still a free agent. Why don't we go sign that guy? As it's been mentioned previously in the offseason around the winter meetings time that the Cardinals could be interested in adding a right-handed bat, specifically an outfielder, and it came up again, and that fan came prepared to ask, hey, the guy with the luscious locks who plays great defense, let's bring him back. Unfortunately, the locks are gone, but the defense is still very much there, and Bader had a career year last year. Derek Gould quoted Bloom, transcribed what he had to say in a great article by Gould, and this is what he had to say about that. Bloom did. Bloom said the Cardinals have room for a right-handed outfielder and that Bader is a possibility. He declined to answer when a fan asked what Bader was seeking as a contract. Hey, fan, great question. Bold of you to ask. Not shocked he didn't answer. So it's at least come to his attention, Bloom's attention, that Harrison Bader could be the guy who is added for the Cardinals, and the Cardinals have clearly called around to trying to find some folks out there to help fill an outfield spot and specifically bring a right-handed bat with it. Now, Bader's numbers were pretty good last year. He had his second-best career year, at least according to WAR. His best one was a while ago, 4.1 WAR season with the Cardinals. A while back, this season, he was at 3.9. We know we can do with the glove, and last year, the offense finally followed with it. He had a 277 slash, a 347 and 449 slug with 17 homers and 54 RBIs through 146 games. So not even a small sample size, not like some crazy platoon situation. He spent time with the Minnesota Twins and was traded later to the Philadelphia Phillies, where he saw even more success than he did with the Twins. So Bader would make a lot of sense for the St. Louis Cardinals. I don't know if some fans desperately want him back. Some fans think he's the worst thing ever. I remember many times yelling, why do you keep chasing the slider down and away? Kind of Jordan Walker-esque. I think adding any right-handed bat could make some sense, regardless if it's Bader or not. But the Cardinals have been directly linked to another right-handed bat that we've brought up here that I would really like to see the Cardinals add. The Cardinals have been formally linked by Jon Heyman to Miguel Anduhar. Jon Heyman writes, Miguel Anduhar, off a big 2025 season, is drawing significant interest from the Rangers, Padres, Cardinals, Reds, Cubs, A's, among many in play. He's drawing a lot of interest because he's cheap. He's a guy who has had a little bit of success, had a great year last year, hitting .318, a .352 on base, and a .470 slug, which was good for an .822 OPS in 94 games. And he was competing on a Reds team that was trying to get itself into the playoffs, so it wasn't just meaningless games either. Anduhar is certainly going to be more of a platoon-type player, which is, again, why he's so cheap, as well as why he makes sense for some teams that are trying to contend. And even the Cardinals he makes sense for. Get a guy in there to add depth, because inevitably, when a Cardinal outfielder gets hurt, who thinks Lars Nootbaar is going to go a full season healthy? Not even I. What happens if Victor Scott doesn't quite pan out? What happens if Jordan Walker doesn't take the step we're hoping that he will? And it's, we're sitting there and it's July and we're just done with it. You bring in a guy who can play outfield spots and offer some versatility, because other than the outfielders that we all know, Scott, Walker, and Nootbaar, the backups are Nathan Church and Jose Fermin. We can do better than that. Depth is okay to have, so that's why it would make some sense to bring in a guy like Anduhar or Harrison Bader. So I'd be very much open to either guy coming into St. Louis. Clearly, we're not competing for much this year, so I'm not going to go up in arms over getting one or the other, how it's going to, change our outlook by missing it's not going to be the reason we do or don't make the playoffs. Let's just be honest. Unless one of them has a crazy season, they've been pumping some sort of secret Michael Jordan secret juice. I don't know. It won't make a big difference. I'm happy to see some depth added either way. You guys let me know. Who would you rather the Cardinals add, Miguel Anduhar or Harrison Bader? I think both could be fun and add a decent bit of pop to the Cardinals lineup when they're called upon. So outside of just players and front office members, the ownership also got interviewed during winter warm-up, and they had a lot of great insights. And I feel like the ownership speaks less. So whenever they're talking, I'm usually all ears to hear what their mindsets are at. We know in the semi-recent past that the DeWitts have not always been the fan favorites, especially in recent past when they said, hey, fans, you have to come to the ballpark, or else our payroll's going to keep dipping, and it's fans' fault. They're blaming the fans for why they can't spend money. I think they've backtracked that. I think they were probably a little emotional, and I really like what they had to say recently. I've noted how I've liked their commitment to winning via willingness to fork over $54 million in commitments to players not on the team anymore in order to help young players get opportunities and to get better prospects. But they had even more commitments to winning through some of these quotes that we got from winter warm-up. One quote, and all these will be from Bill DeWitt III, the son of Bill DeWitt Jr., who is the elder technical owner. His son, Bill DeWitt III, will inevitably take over for him eventually, so these quotes are from him. He said, quote, I have no doubt that we will be in a position to bolster that effort to compete with whatever means we need to do so. We're on the same page with what Bloom plans to do, which is build and don't give up. I'm glad to hear that the DeWitts are coming out and saying that we're committing to what Bloom has in mind. We're committing to a rebuild. Their actions say as much. This isn't a surprise at this point. We've already seen them ship off 3 of the fan favorites, 3 of the best Cardinals from last year. And then clearly they're trying to say that this is going to be a rebuild. They're not hiding that in any way. It wasn't the John Mozeliak era where they constantly said we will never rebuild. That's not what we do in St. Louis. We're going through a rebuild. This is the DeWitts saying it. The actions already said it. But the DeWitts are at least on the same page, which is excellent. You do not want the ownership who holds the pocketbook and your president of baseball operations on 2 different pages. This is words that just bolster the actions that we've already been seeing, which is excellent. And what I've also appreciated is that the DeWitts aren't pushing Bloom to do something crazy, but they are pushing Bloom and the team to try and win as much as possible. They're not sitting around just saying, yeah, let's be awful for a long time. Like I said, they've been forking over money to try to rebuild as efficiently as possible. And they said, quote, success is a winning season and getting our core to do well. They were asked, what is success in your eyes? Get a winning season. That would be epic. That would be major success. That's like, coaches do this all the time before they enter seasons, and they have this big, weighty expectation. Typically for the Cardinals, that expectation is win the division, win the pennant, win the World Series. You set it high. And if you don't win the World Series many years, it's not like it's a complete disappointment unless you're the Dodgers. Well, this is the Cardinals' new success. This is the new World Series for the Cardinals. Have a winning season. The DeWitts have said as much. Typically, they'd say something much higher. I'm glad they're being realistic. Have the core develop. Go into 2027 with some players who are saying, yes, this is who we're building around. And if we win some games this year, awesome. It'll make it way more fun and enjoyable to watch. We're not just trying to flounder and tank to absolute oblivion. We're obviously still trying to compete. They also had some insights to offer, did the DeWitts, on the TV deal updates, and I'm glad to hear some fan-centric quotes on this. Now, TV deal has a big-time impact on the team's financial capacities and what goes into the DeWitts pocketbook. It makes a huge difference, and I'm glad to hear the DeWitts had a lot to say on being centered around the fans' experience, being a concern for theirs, and ensuring that that won't change. Here's what they had to say about that. There shouldn't be much disruption at all. If we stay on FanDuel, it's literally status quo. If we move over to MLB media, the only thing different for a fan would be what channel we're on. And that makes a lot of sense, and that's what we've been hearing already. It's been a lot of speculation and assumptions from journalists and media, but these are the guys negotiating. These are the guys that are in the room where it happens, hearing these things, and I'm glad to at least hear this reiterated to us. Again, not breaking news, but some clarification and doubling down on what we already thought. The Cardinals fans will be able to watch baseball next year. It just depends what channel we'll have to turn on. And frankly, the FanDuel experience wasn't great anyway, so if we switch, at least I won't be that upset. You guys let me know if you loved FanDuel or not. We already lost Alexa Dat, so we already lost another good analyst. I'm fine if we move on to MLB media. Now, they talked about some progress in those negotiations and where we are in terms of finalizing a TV deal. They had this to say: we're a step removed from those negotiations, finally negotiating a price and which place to specifically go. Said DeWitt III, but we're rooting for whoever we're with to get increased distribution and onto different distribution platforms. Baseball finally recognizes that we've siloed your ability to watch baseball, which is awesome. That they're realizing we want to watch baseball and they should help us watch baseball because it's good for everybody. If the fans get what they want, we're going to give over our money as long as we get to watch baseball. So I'm glad to hear that that is a focus of the DeWitts. Make sure that fans can get to watch this on multiple platforms flexibly and not blacked out from our own region, which would be amazing. The last most important point that I was intrigued to hear and I haven't heard much talked about outside of the DeWitts mentioning here was Busch Stadium is up for renovations. The stadium turns 20 years old this year. It's 2026. The stadium opened in 2006 in that World Series year. And, you know, that might make some of you feel super old. I wasn't quite old enough to remember when the old stadium was around anyway. But here's what they had to say about that. We plan on being here for a long time, but we're going to have to do a project that is multifaceted at some point in the near future. That time frame will be dictated by the physical realities of things. They mentioned that they're kind of waiting around for this Royals-Chiefs thing to settle out. The reason for that is that the state has some acts and some policies in it that can help finance these renovations, and they're kind of waiting around to see, you know, how much can they demand from the state to do that, although a lot of it is kind of getting settled with the Chiefs and Royals. We have this act called the Show Me Sports Investment Act, which could authorize the state to cover up to 50% of costs for large-scale stadium projects. That's as long as the local area shows commitment to helping with renovations and if the DeWitts show commitment to helping with renovations, which would be big. And frankly, the St. Louis Cardinals will become the biggest professional sports team in the state, assuming the Royals and the Chiefs are moving out like things have been saying. So the Cardinals will get special treatment potentially just for being around. And hey, baseball heaven deserves just as much. And it's said to be happening in the near future. And I should have said it right off the beat. This information came allotted to you from a wonderful article from Joey Schneider of Fox 2 News. So if you want to read more detail on the things I just talked about and even more, Joey, I didn't throw everything out there for you. You're welcome. Go to that article on Fox 2 News for some great coverage on that as well. Hashtag not a sponsor. And thank you guys for tuning into the St. Louis Cardinals Daily Podcast. We'll keep covering your offseason, so don't forget to subscribe, set notifications so that you can get your news every single day. Thank you guys for tuning in.